So guys, welcome to my second FIFA 15 team predictions, and this episode I'm going to go with Man City, and we'll start off with the goalies as usual. So the first goalkeeper is going to be Hart, who has been their main goalie for the last couple of seasons, and he did have quite a poor start to the year, and he was replaced with Pantilimon for quite a while, mainly because of two main errors against Chelsea, but he's slowly gone back into the team, and he's kind of proved how good he is, and he's been performing really well towards the end of the season. So that's why I kept his rating the same, and I think I kept most of his stats the same as well. But the second goalie, who was only just recently moved to Man City, is Caballero, who was from Malaga. Now, in FIFA 14, I think he was 79 rated, which was drastically underrated in my opinion, because for the last couple of seasons he's been really, really good. And the last season he was really good as well, so that's why I put his rating up to an 81, which in my opinion I think he deserves. And the main stat I upgraded was his handling, which I put up to 75 from 69, because in my opinion I think 69 is slightly too low for him. But overall he looks like a really solid card, but in my opinion I think Hart does look like a better card, because in I think almost every stat's higher apart from his positioning, which is 2 lower. But overall, they got some really nice goalies, and I didn't include their third goalie because he's only a bronze, and I think his name's Wright or something like that. But he never gets played, and he's always a bronze, and he's a bronze, so that's why I didn't really include him in this video. But now we'll move on to the defenders. So next we have the defenders. Now, obviously the first defender is going to be Company, who's been their main central defender for the last couple of seasons, or for quite a while actually. Now, last season wasn't one of his best, to be honest. I think the 11-12 season was probably better for him. But even so, he did have a really good season on the whole, even after making a couple of mistakes, which he could have avoided. But I kept his card the same from his World Cup card, which was upgraded quite a lot from his normal card. But I downgraded some of his stats because, in my opinion, he was upgraded too much to stay the same rating. So I gave him 75 pace, 73 dribbling, 86 defence, and 81 heading. Now the next defender is going to be Zabaleta, who's had a really solid season, so I was kind of pondering on whether I should put him up to an 83 or keep him at an 82, but I decided to keep him as an 82 because, in my opinion, he is one of the best in the world, but there are better out there like Lahm and Dani Alves, and I don't really think 83 would be worthy, although he could get 83, and that would still be a fair rating for him. But I put his pace up to 75 from 73 because, in my opinion, he deserves a big pace upgrade. Well, 75 is too low in my opinion, but I don't think EA will put him his pace above 75. I think he deserves more like 77/78, maybe over 80. But I put his dribbling up as well, and I just changed some of his stats around. I think I put his passing down slightly. But overall, he does look like a really solid card, and if he does get a pace upgrade, I'm sure he will be used much more in Premier League teams. But the final defender of this section is going to be Mangala, who's actually recently just moved to Man City apparently. There was a video which they accidentally, in inverted commas, accidentally put on their website, and it showed him having a medical and signing a contract for Man City and saying he wanted to help them try and win the league again. So that has all happened, but he hasn't actually officially 100% moved yet, apparently, according to Pellegrini. So he's basically moved, but they haven't announced it yet, so that's why I included this card. Now, I kept his card basically exactly the same from his FIFA 14 card. He didn't have the best of seasons, but it was quite a solid season. He scored a lot of goals from headers, so he definitely deserves 87 heading, and I just kept all his card stats the same because I think he does deserve them. So next we have the second section of defenders, and the first defender is going to be Demichelis. He had a really bad start to the season when he joined. I think he joined in January, and he had a really poor start to the season then. He just made loads of mistakes, conceded loads of penalties, etc., and was just really poor all round. But then he improved quite a lot actually towards the end of the season, and started playing really well. And for Argentina in the World Cup, he was a main starter for most of the games. So overall, I put him down by 1 to 82 because he is an 82 standard at the moment. And if he had carried on playing like he did when he started, when he joined Man City, I probably would have put him down to like a 77 or something. But because he played so well at the end of the season, I kept him I put him down to an 81, and I just changed some of his stats around. So I just gave him a bit of a downgrade on most of the stats. I think like his defense and his heading mainly. But overall, he does still look like a solid card, and I'm sure well, I don't think he will be used by many people, to be honest, because he has still got 39 pace, which he does deserve because he is really slow. But even so, I think he does deserve an 81 rating. But the next defender is going to be Kolarov, who was a 78 rated in FIFA 14, and he had like 68 pace, I think, or 67 pace. But in my opinion, he is slightly faster than that. He isn't the fastest, but he definitely deserves more than 68, 67 pace or so. So I gave him 72 pace, and I gave him an 80 rating because he did kind of overtake Clichy for part of the season. They kind of alternated quite a lot, but he did play really well when he played, and definitely does deserve an 80 rating. And I gave him 74 dribbling, 81 defence, 76 heading, 78 passing, and 72 shooting as well. So quite an all-rounded card there. But the third defender of this section is going to be Clichy, who kind of alternated with Kolarov. He didn't have the best of seasons. Definitely doesn't deserve an 81 rating. He might go down to like a 79, maybe 78 even. But I think 80 is right for him, in my opinion. I just gave some downgrades to some of his stats, like his pace and his defence, I think. But overall, he didn't have the best of seasons. But he was solid when he played, and he didn't really deserve a drastic downgrade. So next we have Bakary Sagna, who recently moved from Arsenal. Now I kept his rating the same and his card basically the same as well, because he had quite a good season with Arsenal. Not the best. He was sometimes slightly inconsistent, but overall he had a pretty good season. So I didn't really want to downgrade him because he is still quite good, but he didn't deserve an upgrade definitely either. So that's why I kept his rating as 80, and most of his stats the same. But next we have Micah Richards, who's actually quite a good player, but he doesn't really get played much. And when he does get played, because he doesn't really get played, he's a bit rusty and he doesn't really play very well. So I think he'll probably be looking for a move now that Sagna's in, as well as Zabaleta. So he'll be a third choice right back. So I think he'll be looking for a move away, possibly maybe a loan or just a full deal to another club maybe. But he is quite a good right back. A couple of seasons ago, I remember him being one of the best in the Premier League, and there were talks of Chelsea buying him for like 20 million or something when he was at the top of his game playing for Man City as their first choice right back. Then Zabaleta came in and he got loads of injuries and started playing not as well. So I did give him a bit of a downgrade because he didn't really play at all last season, and when he did, he wasn't that amazing. He was solid, but he wasn't that amazing. So I give him a 78 rated rare card with 80 pace, 72 dribbling, 80 defence, and 87 heading. But next we have Nasasic, who I gave a +1 rating, and I gave him a rare card as well, because in my opinion he didn't really play at all last season because of having an injury. But when he played really well, and he is a solid defender and definitely deserves that based on the season before last as well. So I just gave him a +1 rating, a rare card, and just some general stat upgrades, such as +2 pace, I believe. But next, the final defender is going to be Rekik, who's been on loan for quite a while in the Eredivisie. But I think he might come back to stay this time, or he might go back on loan somewhere because he's still 19. But he's had quite a solid season, I believe. So that's why I kept his card the same. I don't really think he deserves an upgrade, definitely not to a gold. So I just kept his card the same, and yeah, he doesn't really deserve a downgrade either. So next we have the midfielders. Now the first midfielder, as you can see, is Yaya Toure, who had an absolutely outstanding season for Man City and was definitely one of the best in the world. So that's why I gave him a +2 rating to an 88 rated card. And his main upgrade was his shooting, which is 81, which I think is the same as in the World Cup game, because he has improved his free kicks quite a lot and his just general shooting because of how many goals he scored. But he definitely deserves an upgrade. Maybe not in his defending, because he did attack more than defend last season. But just an overall upgrade to his card, and definitely an 88 rating is fair for him because he had such an outstanding season. But anyway, the next midfielder is David Silva, who I put down 1. I think I kept all of his stats the same, but I put him down 1 rating because of his position change to a left mid, And with those stats, I don't think he'll keep an 88 rating as a left mid. So I put him down to an 87 rated card, which I think he does deserve really, because he had a good season. Maybe not as good as Torre though, so that's why he's one less in his overall rating. But the third midfielder of this section is going to be Nasri, who had a really good season for Man City, but I don't really think he deserves an upgrade to an 85. So in my opinion, an 84 rated card is fair for him. And just all of his stats should really stay the same from his FIFA 14 card, because they were quite accurate of how he performs in real life. So next we have the second section of midfielders, and the first midfielder is going to be Jesus Navas, who featured quite a lot for the first part of the season, but then slowly he was replaced by Nasri and other players as well, so he didn't get as much play time towards the end of the season. But even so, when he played really well, and definitely deserves an 84 rated card, which is one less than his FIFA 14 card. And the reason for that is that I think 85 is a bit too high for him. He definitely shouldn't be higher than Nasri, because I think they've basically been the same throughout the season, maybe Nasri being slightly better. So that's why I kept him as put him down to an 84 rated card, and I just put some of his stats down as well. But in my opinion, he deserves more shooting than 71, because of some of his goals in the season, like against Spurs. I think he scored 2, like a chip over Lloris and stuff. But even so, I think he will get a downgrade to an 84, maybe even an 83 if EA are feeling slightly harsh. But I think 84 is the right rating for him, and just some general stat downgrades as well. But the next midfielder is going to be Fernandinho, who had a really solid season for Man City, and that's why I gave him a +1 upgrade to 82. Now, when he moved in, a lot of people thought he wouldn't do very well, and why did Man City buy him? Because he was so old and stuff, and no one really knew him. But he actually performed really well, and it turned out to be quite a good buy for them. And then he went to the Brazil national team and played quite well in the World Cup. He was one of the players that played alright. He was a bit dirty in his challenges, but overall he did play alright. And I just gave him a general upgrade from his World Cup card, which was from his I think from his head-to-head card as well, which is 76 defense, which is a big upgrade from his 70 defense from his normal FIFA 14 card, and also just some general other stat upgrades as well. But the new midfielder who's come in, who is the next midfielder in the section, is going to be Fernando, who came in from Porto, and I gave him a +1 upgrade to an 80 rated card from 79, because apparently he is a really solid midfielder. I have watched him a couple of times for Porto, and he definitely deserves more pace as well, so that's why I gave him 70 pace. And just overall, he's a really solid, reliable midfielder, and I can definitely see why they bought him, because they can just bring him in near the end of the game if they want to, like, if they want to keep a win without conceding any goals. They could just bring him in, and he'll be really solid defensively, compared to Yaya Toure, who's a bit of a liability defensively sometimes. So next we have James Milner, who didn't really feature that much in the season, to be honest, but when he did, he played alright, but not amazing, so that's why I gave him a downgrade from his 81 rated card, because in my opinion 81 was slightly too high for Milner. I think 80 is about right for him. It's still quite a high rating, and he did play quite well, but I don't really think he deserved an 81 rating, and I just gave him some general stat downgrades, apart from his pace, which I put up to 72 from 70, because I think he is faster than his card was in FIFA 14. But anyway, the next midfielder who might be looking for a move away from Man City is Javi Garcia. That's mainly because Fernando has come in, and he'll probably take his spot because he's slightly better, although you never know. But I think Garcia may be looking for a move away from Man City this summer, or at least in January, because he will have his spot taken. And that's why I kept his card the same, because he hasn't really featured much in the season, but he kind of had a role which I think Fernando will have next season, which is kind of just bring him on to kind of protect the game. Sometimes if the other players are injured, they'll bring him on. But overall, he had quite a solid season when he did play, but I don't really think he deserves an 80 rating, or 78 rating, or even lower. So that's why I kept his card as a 79 rated card. And the next card is going to be Rodwell, who didn't really feature at all because of injuries, and it's a shame because injuries have kind of ruined his career. He had a lot of potential, he still does, but he had even more potential, and when he moved to Man City from Everton, everyone thought he was going to do really well, but he picked up loads of injuries and hasn't really featured much, to be honest, which is a shame because Man City don't really play many of their English players. Most of their players are from abroad. But Rodwell, I kept his rating as a 77 rated card, because he didn't really feature much. When he did play, I think he only played once. He was all right, I think, and it's a bit harsh to downgrade him just because he's been injured as well. But then the final midfielder is going to be Lopez, who's moved up from the City kind of youth squad and has been playing really well for the main team when he has played, which isn't really in Premier League games, it's more in like cup games and stuff. So that's why I gave him an upgrade from his bronze card to a 66 rated silver card, and I gave him +1 pace and just some general other upgrades to like his dribbling and stuff as well. He doesn't look like that much of a good card, but he is still quite a solid card, and he definitely does deserve a silver card and a bit of an upgrade as well. So next we move on to the attackers, and now the first attacker is going to be Aguero, who had a really good start of the season, and I thought he would be like the top scorer. I predicted him to be the top scorer because he was performing just as well as Suarez back then, but then he got loads of injuries, and I think City started playing him slightly too early when he after the injuries, and then he got more injuries, and he just had kind of a lot of injuries throughout the end of the season. But in my opinion, I think he does still deserve to keep his 88 rating, and I just changed some of his card stats around a bit, I think, or I might have kept his card exactly the same. But I definitely think he deserves to keep his 88 rating because of his really good start of the season, which did contribute to City's winning of the season massively, and just generally playing really well. And even after his injuries, when he wasn't scoring that much, he did still play really well. And in the World Cup, he was all right, I think. But he definitely deserves his 88 rating, and that's why I kept him the same. But the next striker is going to be Negredo, who again had a really good start of the season, and then just had like a complete goal drought. He scored like no goals. But in my opinion, he does deserve to keep his upgraded 84 rating from FIFA 14 because he did perform really well in the start of the season. And if he does perform like that in the next season, then he will deserve to keep his card. And I just gave some of his stats a change, like his pace I put up to 75, because in my opinion he is faster than this FIFA 14 card. And just change some of the stats as well. But the next striker is going to be Dzeko, who in my opinion is slightly overrated. A lot of people are saying he's really good and he'll be like the top scorer next season. But if you watch him for the whole game, in the highlights he looks good because he scores quite a lot of goals. Most of them are tap-ins, but even so, he is a poacher, I guess. But I think if you watch him for the whole game, he'll miss loads of chances. Like I went to watch a game for Man City against Blackburn, because I support Blackburn, if you didn't know that already. And he missed tons of chances. I think he missed at least 10 chances in the first half. He just skied loads of shots, and he was absolutely terrible. And watching him in some of the other games as well, not live but just on telly, you can kind of see that he doesn't take all of his chances, so I don't really think he does deserve an 84 rated card. I think 83 is fair for him, which is the same as a FIFA 13 card, but because of his FIFA 14 card, sorry, but because of him scoring so many goals, I decided to give some of his stats an upgrade, like his heading and his dribbling as well. So now we move on to the final section of this episode, and the first attacker is going to be Jovetic, who had a really poor start of the season, and he had loads of injuries and stuff, and just didn't really feature much at all. And when he did feature, he didn't play very well. But towards the end of the season, he's played really well, and also in the pre-season for this season, he played really well. So I was thinking about keeping his rating the same, but I think because he played so badly at the start of the season, he doesn't deserve to keep his 84 rating from FIFA 14. So that's why I put him down to an 83 and just generally gave him a downgrade to some of his stats, like his heading, for example. But anyway, next we have Sinclair, who was on loan at West Brom last season and didn't really feature that much. And when he did, he didn't really play very well. So he played alright, but I don't really think he deserves a gold card. Now, in head-to-head at the moment, he's 72 rated, but because he's been playing so well in pre-season for Man City, I decided to put him up to a 74 rated card. And just general downgrades to some of his stats. But anyway, the final player who I just realised I've missed about his name. I think he's got 2 T's, not 2 I's. But anyway, it's Guidetti, who's had a massive injury kind of stricken season last season and also the season before. So he hasn't really featured much at all. But he is really talented and definitely deserves to keep his 73 rated card, which is the same as in FIFA 14. And I just gave some of his stats a general upgrade as well, like his heading and his dribbling. and I just think he is a really talented player. He just hasn't really had the chance because of injuries, so he doesn't really deserve a downgrade or an upgrade. But anyway, guys, if you did enjoy this episode, please do hit the like button below and recommend it to any friends that you think would like my channel as well. And please do subscribe if you haven't already, and I will see you in the next episode.